Hello everybody, James here, and before we get started, are you noticing this official BWO t-shirt available at Pro Wrestling Tees from the link in the description and the pinned comment right about now? I knew you were, but anyway, let's go on to what I was originally going to talk about, and I'm not going to talk about this, maybe for a future video, but I was going to talk about the ridiculous uptick in wrestling viewership, that which somehow seems to be entirely down to Nielsen, who have had, decades and decades of experience collating viewership and whatever they've done. They can't seem to get a handle of the one job they've got, and now they've once again recalculated how they record and collect viewership data for American households. But Dutch always tells me this: nobody gives a shit about wrestling television ratings, and when we know more, I may go into more depth about that. But for now, I thought I'd talk about something that Cody Rhodes said on his podcast yesterday, I think, as I record this, that makes all the sense in the world. And for the life of me, all this story did was expose how short-sighted and bottom-line-minded TKO executives were when they took over WWE and still are today. So, on the latest episode, once again, of What Do You Want to Talk About, or What Do You Want to Talk About, with Cody Rhodes, he invited Jey Uso on as a guest. Now, this has nothing to do with Jey Uso whatsoever in this, but it's all about Cody Rhodes' stance on live events, also known as house shows, and how pretty much removing them from the WWE schedule has had a deleterious effect on the business of the, not only for the fans, but also the performers as well, quite frankly, in a number of different ways. So this is what he said.
I had suggested some of the top brass in the company for a myriad of reasons: camaraderie, the reps, the general sense of working here. It's hard to think you work somewhere if you're only there a couple of days a week, right? Versus the schedule for when we first started, where it was full tours, live events, then you come to TV, and then you're home less time.
2 days.
2 days, right? And sometimes a day and a half, right? It's the travel day. But I had suggested them, I said, run 1 weekend a month. Call them house shows. Make them almost poke the fourth wall a little bit in terms of what they are. They're canon, but they're not. You're going to see some of the stuff you see on TV, but it's going to be a bit more of a mixed bag, and maybe you're going to see some people you've never seen before who are getting their first rep in front of you, and run them that way, where there's an intimacy to them that's advertised. This is a house show. That's what you guys are getting, and it's going to be awesome.
They're so fun, don't they?
They're so fun.
Yeah, also going to just say, did Jey Uso just say they're so fun, don't they? But anyway, you get the idea. You know what? It's an absolutely excellent idea. Everybody who follows wrestling closely, when TKO took over from WWE and basically UFC amalgamated to become TKO, they quite quickly figured out that the bottom line was all that was ever going to matter to these people who didn't fully understand what wrestling was all about. Short of sight, deep of pockets, greedy of soul. Now, why do we do live events when we don't make millions per event? Is, I'm sure, what they were thinking to themselves. I mean, we make over $1 billion a year in rights fees. I'm sure they were also saying we already give fans 3 whole matches every WWE Raw. What more do these people want? Anyway, I'm going to get to the benefits to the wrestlers in a minute, but first let's talk about the benefits of house shows to wrestling fans. And I think that fans want to feel a little more connected to this multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, formerly known as a wrestling promotion, than that they all, in all likelihood, grew up watching, was probably their favorite promotion ever, and it's obviously still the only super major international wrestling promotion out there. So rather than being treated like an open wallet, a set of eyeballs, a statistic on a computer screen, I think they want to be treated like fans and get a bit of fan service from the company instead of, just being gouged constantly. Now, when house shows were all but eliminated a couple of years ago, it put paid to less densely populated areas, like getting to see WWE shows, live, like Raw, SmackDown, and the PLEs. They're only going to go to places where they've got a 10,000 plus seat arena these days in major metropolitan areas. Now, house shows used to be held anywhere there was a venue at one point, from the Cape Cod Melody Tent to the Catholic Youth Center in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Now, if you don't live next to or near to or in New York City or Los Angeles or a Tampa or wherever else it might be where they're constantly holding these major shows, it's a long long drive to see WWE live now, or a flight, or what most people will do, and you won't go to see them, you will stay home. So house shows make new fans. I think that's fairly, confident I can say that, in all honesty, is because, I don't think you're ever like truly a wrestling fan until you go and see it live right in front of your eyes. I mean, I think a lot of people are fans just watching on TV, but it really sort of cements fandom to go see it live with your own eyes for the very first time. And in fact, there are more fun than a television taping to attend as well. I mean, why? Because there's no tedious recaps constantly, or, just sitting around just looking at the Titantron for, adverts, or, what they did in, I don't know, throwing out the first pitch or something like that. There are no 20-minute promos. In fact, actually, that's not quite true, because there was quite a long promo segment when I went to a house show last in 2024, I think October, something like that. But for the most part, you don't have a ton of boring promos. You don't have commercial breaks, so the performers just sit there for 3 minutes doing a rest hold. And there's just a card full of matches. It's really simple. You have like a little break in between for intermission, and then you get, 4 matches at the beginning, 3 or 4 matches at the end, 7-8 match card. Then you go home and you've seen loads of wrestling, loads of your favourites, and it's a good time. I prefer house shows to TV tapings, and I think a lot of other fans do as well. But we're going to get to the wrestlers as well. But the wrestlers, by and large, enjoy the house shows more as well, because comparatively speaking, the pressure is off. Whether you're a rookie or a main roster person who's been on, been wrestling for 25 plus years, wrestlers actually love to wrestle, would you believe? And the travel is terrible, of course, that's the kind of thing you have to put up with to get to your destination, whether it's a holiday or a job. But the performing is why these people strived for years on end to get signed by WWE in the first place. Now, house shows are a great place to try new things as well, in the ring, without fear of messing up in front of millions of people watching at home. Now, only working television and PLE shows mean that you have to dial in and focus on your performance, and basically what works. It's not the place to try new stuff on television in front of millions, and then your creativity gets stifled somewhat in the process. Now, also, if you've got let's say a big match with an opponent coming up, do you know what's great? It's that you can work with them on the house shows prior to taking the match to television or PLEs, so your performance is better by the time the wider mass audience actually gets to see it. Now, that's just for the veterans. The rookies, or those with less experience or just need tuning up, there's a shed load of them on the main roster to this day. I mean, they desperately need the reps, some people who are getting paid a lot of money on the WWE main roster. Now, I hate to pick, not really, but I hate to pick on Maxine Dupree, for example, but she's the best example to give it. She's by and large so unbelievably green in everything that she does that she's just not going to improve quick enough by only wrestling on the television shows, once every other week. And, is it going to be enough over time to justify keeping a very, very high-profile spot on WWE Raw every week or every other week, when the training process could be expedited by having more live events, more house shows, in front of live crowds several times a week? Now, same with Logan Paul. For as massive a turd as he is, allegedly, in real life, he's an extremely gifted in-ring performer. Now, that's obviously when he's had 6 weeks to practice his matches beforehand. But now he's full-time with WWE, and he has less time to prepare for bouts that he's in. It's kind of obvious that they've been painting over the cracks and, once again, practicing these matches out to get exactly what he needs to do done in the ring. But, when you have less time to practice these matches, that greenness will shine through. Someone like Logan Paul would absolutely be brought up to speed. Once again, as talented as he is, he could also use a lot of house shows, live events, to tune up and basically up his game on the little stuff. Now, here's another thing. Wrestlers left and right are getting injured because they do so few matches over a year. Same with AEW, in fact, at the same time. They treat their time in the ring, for the most part, like it's a WrestleMania main event, pulling out all the stops and taking all the risks. Now, more regular matches not only keep the body more limber and more bump ready, I guess you could say, but if you know you have another match booked for the next day, it kind of instills a sense of self-preservation in everybody rather than taking unnecessary risk in the few times you actually do get a match. So I'd guarantee, or all but guarantee, that we wouldn't see the injury rate go up if people had a lot more matches to do. So anyway, here are some reasons to not do house shows. Well, some wrestlers will be bummed out, I'm sure, that now they're having to work a bit more, but I suspect the vast majority would actually welcome the change. As Cody said before, hey, when they got into the business, they might have had 2 nights back home or 2 days back home before you got to go on the road again. Whereas these days, you've got 2 nights on the road, if that, and then you go home for the majority of your week. Even if there's a PLE on, you will still be at home for the majority of the week. So it's kind of like, once again, the base salary on the WWE main roster is $350,000 minimum. That is a huge amount of money, obscenely high, especially when you consider it is very much at this point part-time work. Now, unless you're a major star on the main roster, because obviously the bigger a star you are, the more media obligations you will have. But let's say, Akira Tozawa's or someone like that, they're not going to be getting, a ton of interviews everywhere, I'm sure. And for the most part, they're just sat at home. They could have 3 weeks off and no one would notice. So, once again, you're at home 5 nights a week, usually, probably 6, I think. You've got like a day and a half of traveling, going to the show and coming back again, if you can fly out the same night. But you also might have, the occasional PLE or Saturday night's main event. And so, yeah, that's kind of it. It is, once again, it's still a very difficult job. But it's nowhere near as difficult as it used to be. And I actually think Jey Uso mentions that in that same podcast as well. Say, hey, it's difficult in different ways because obviously he's a bigger star than he used to be. But wrestling-wise, travel-wise, it's never been easier. So anyway, there's another reason. And once again, that's a reason that doesn't wash with me. But here's another reason that doesn't wash. And it's Mark Shapiro and whoever else crying about losing money, which is kind of laughable considering how much money WWE makes in profit. But I've got a few quotes from Mr. Shapiro. I think they're the first 2 are from Mark Shapiro, and the third one is going to be... No, I'm sorry, they're all from Mark Shapiro, and then Nick Khan also added his own 2 cents as well, but we're not going to talk about that. So this one's from December 2023. From a margin perspective, live events are dilutive. They are probably opportunities as we go through our efficiencies and synergies, all this business talk bollocks, you know what it is, to cut back those non-televised events. Why not just say they're expensive? Which will, of course, push our margin up. We're going through that exercise now. A second quote from September 2024, Shapiro said, we're cutting events at WWE. We're taking our low-margin, marginally profitable events. Still, he says low margin, but marginally profitable. They're not even losing money on these untelevised events that Vince McMahon put in place to grow the brand. You're taking the show on the road. We've got to go to every city we can to grow the WWE brand. Well, the WWE brand, while we still have to grow it, it's on fire right now. Keep in mind, he said that September 2024 as well. That's another reason maybe to bring these house shows back. We don't need to carry these marginally profitable events. Once again, still profitable. And forget about the name. Anyway, I'll go to the last bit. It just says, what was 300 events, WWE events a year, last year, so that would have been in 2023, is now 250 in 2024, and next year, 2025, will be close to 200. Now, in May 13th, 2025, Shapiro said that they weren't done yet. We cut live events 75%, he said. The number of house shows that we do, we feel... It was funny that he says house shows as well. We feel that's a good place to be, and we'll continue to prune as we get through. So as many live events as they've cut, they still want to get rid of even more. Well, all the benefits that I've said to the fans and the performers, and with his own words there, they still make money. But anyway, here's the truth of it all. The performers are paid the same regardless of how many wrestling matches they do or how many shows they appear on in a year. There is no loss of money because performers will have extra dates to do, a house show loop. So all there is to do is pay for the venue rental, a bit of advertising, a comparatively small team to, drive to the venues, rig up the entrance, rig up the ring, whatever else needs to be. It's relatively cost-effective considering all the benefits and relatively cost-effective compared to a regular television taping. So WWE, TKO, this also needs to be said, in 2025, made nearly $2 billion in profit. They could run these house shows for free, for life, for 100 years, every single day, and they would be just fine financially. Now, when some greedy corporate executive says that they need to cut costs, keep it once again, They were making money still on the house shows in 2023. It was marginally profitable. That's still not marginally a loss or a break even. Anyway, so when some greedy corporate executive says, oh, we've got to cut costs at the expense of the development of the talent or shoring up future generations of performers, let's just hope they just go on TV and they're all right. What they actually mean is that they're worried that somehow a microscopic financial shortfall might happen, and then that will somehow be taken out of their annual bonuses. Or if WWE's profits fall from $1.87 billion per year to $1.875 billion a year, somehow that will affect TKO stock prices or even sale price when they eventually flog it to the Saudis or whoever else. So anyway, going to Cody's point again, he said, well, let's do one house show loop a month. Well, maybe 3 shows in a row, then leading into television, whatever it might be. I'm going to go one further and say, why not just do one a week? And I'll explain why. The roster, the main roster members, let's say there's about 65 on Raw active, both men and women, 55 main roster members on SmackDown, give or take, and about 70 or so about NXT, on NXT. Now, NXT still runs 7 or 8 live events per month, which is usually 7 or 8 more than WWE does domestically speaking, if it's not a holiday season or, once again, they're on an international tour. But you only realistically need maybe 16 to 18 performers plus a couple of referees and, you know, whatever staffing or whatever else, you know, teamsters that you need to use to, you know, set up and tear down the sets and whatnot, plus a bit of security. So, once again, it's still a logistical issue, but this is WWE. They can more than handle it. But the point is that you only need 16 to 18 performers for a house show. That's really all you need. You're not doing a battle royal. So there were certain territories back in the day that would run like 8 to 10 performers on a show, and they would do 7 shows a week with 10 roster members. That's it. They'd all wrestle in the undercard, and then at the end of it, they'd have a big like captain's tag match or something like that, where all the people in the main event had already wrestled once anyway. So anyway, the point is that if you've got, let's say, if you add up Raw and SmackDown's 120, so dilute that down a bit to 100, you know, for injuries and if a few people need, you know, personal time off, whatever. You can split that group up into 4, and therefore you have got a month's worth of house show loops with 4 completely separate rosters. Have a couple of main eventers on every one, of, you know, a few tag teams on every one, a few women's matches, sprinkle it with different people every single week, and then you've got completely fresh matchups constantly happening throughout the year. And once again, you get all these people reps. If there are particularly green wrestlers, guess what? They can do more than 1 loop a month. They can do 2 loops a month, maybe even 3. If you really need to get those reps up in front of a live audience and, you know, catch up, improve your wrestling kind of thing. So sure, it's more logistics. Guess what? You can even throw some NXT guys on there as well. You can have 25, 30 people, you know, traveling, doing a loop. It's more than easy to do for a company the size of WWE with their infrastructure. So, yes, it's more logistics, I understand that. It may even lose a bit of money, I get that. But to be honest, even in 2023, and they're still selling out massively, they're still shifting tons of tickets at obscene prices, plus shifting loads of merchandise as well. These house shows, for the most part, will still be in profit. So I don't see, with all the benefits, once again, with none of the drawbacks, why don't you just do them again? Because if nothing else, the fans would love it, I'm sure. So there's no good reason not to bring house shows back at full steam, I think. Do 300 events a year again, even more. We would never have to... Without house shows, we'd never have The Undertaker, for goodness sake, going nuts on the ring apron, for example. I mean, look at him go. Here we go. So we'd never get that if there weren't any house shows anymore, and I think that's some of the best bits about it. It's something, you're bound to see something a little bit different. You're bound to see a little Easter egg here or there that you'd never see at a TV taping and away from the studio TV lights. And once again, the house shows are the best shows to go to for WWE, definitely. So yes, the message is clear. Bring back house shows. And I say that as somebody who lives in one of the very few areas of the world where we still get semi-regular house shows from WWE. They come through Manchester every single year. It's great if you want to go and see them. So once again, bring back the house shows. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you for the next video.